Welcome to the Fast Act webinar. Today we're going to go over ensuring personnel safety and dry decontamination for crowd control operations. I'm Leticia Manzano. I'm the marketing manager here for Fast Act. We have Kyle Knappenberger here and George Negron. Kyle is our technology VP, and George is our Fast Act sales vice president here at San Juan. They'll be going over a few slides, and the presentation will last about 45 minutes. We will leave questions at the end, but we also have our Q&A box here on Teams. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to drop your questions in that box, and we'll make sure to answer them afterwards. So Kyle, I'll pass it on to you. Thank you everybody again for joining.
Thank you, Leticia. Today, George and I are going to go through a few different things on our topic here of personal safety, dry decon, and crowd control operations. We're going to go over the problem, the Fast Act technology, how it plays into different real-world scenarios. I'll kind of talk through some of the chemistry involved, not in any complex way. But then also talk about how we can support your team and, of course, take your questions. All right, I'd like to introduce our Senior VP, George Negron.
Thanks, Kyle. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Very happy to kind of be presenting this. I think it's appropriate kind of for the day and time that we're living in. So kind of just starting this off and very appropriately titled The Problem. What we're seeing is a clear shift with chemical threats are no longer in the battlefields or the war zones. In the past year alone, agencies are dealing with anywhere from unknown chemicals, unknown substances, the improvised use of household chemicals like chlorine and ammonia derivatives, or just industrial chemicals that are being weaponized. So although these incidents don't always make headlines, they're happening daily and on a regular basis. And just in speaking with the agencies that we go visit, they're saying, we're kind of not prepared for that. We have several instances where, whether intentional or not, these kind of chemicals made its way into the general population, and what it caused is kind of this chaos and this havoc and under preparedness. So the threat landscape. So what this slide underscores here is kind of the critical shift. We covered, the chemical threats are there, but it's making its way to the city streets. And when you're looking at some of these protests, it's becoming industrial zones and civilian environments. So we're seeing that steady global increase in chemical terrorism, but we're also seeing it in the US where the use of chlorine in water balloons, or the use of chlorine in a kind of these improvised devices. And the most common agents can be purchased right into the local hardware store or chemical supply store. It's not just deliberate acts, there's also the unintentional acts that we're going to cover. I gave an example, and I have one covered here, where an industrial event took place, excuse me, in Tennessee earlier this year. And, they're becoming more frequently and disruptive. And the first responders and the medics at that point in time had to treat it like a, scene of mass casualty or mass disruption, but they weren't prepared with the chemical decon capability. We also have evidence, you have non-state actors like ISIS that have used chemical agents on civilians. One of the more recent examples, the Sinjar attack, where 600 people were injured. So the kind of theme of this threat landscape, intentional or not, when you're dealing with crowd control and you're dealing with civil disorder and civil unrest, they're going to become frequent scales of these incidents. And unless you're prepared, or you have some sort of preparedness and training, it's going to escalate that kind of response time and incident. Along with the civil arrests and the protests, we're seeing, the upcoming 2026 World Cup. So kind of looking at the head of it, it's kind of overwhelming to think that it's going to bring over 5 million attendees across 16 cities that span over US, Canada, and Mexico. So anytime you think about these large-scale gatherings, they're prime environments for unrest. So protest activity, deliberate chemical deployment. We saw one, recently in Miami where kind of there was just destruction and there was no way to kind of control the crowd. So we went to a very kind of what could have been a minor incident to a larger. So you have these deployment events where you're ranging from like the use of tear gas or acid-based attacks. So you have 6 cities now that are going to be managing over 1 million visitors each. So that translates to a massive burden to law enforcement, emergency response teams, mobile response teams, who are already stretched in. So for agencies, they must be ready to act to these unknown threats in highly dense, highly pressured situation. So this is no longer like global sporting events. It's now going to be a domestic event where we're going to have complex security operations with real world consequences. So when looking at this, I mean, I feel bad for the folks that have to kind of schedule this. So when you're kind of looking at this slide here, it just shows all the cities kind of overlapping features and overlapping resources. So when you consider mutual aid, where you can normally rely or call on a neighboring city or neighboring town to kind of assist, because of just the amount of people and the amount of burden that's already placing, there's going to be really little to no help. So the mutual aid is going to be solely on kind of that agency in the hosting city. So what it does is makes you kind of take a deep look and say, are we prepared if mutual aid isn't available? Are we self-sufficient when it comes to managing crowd control, hazard exposure, and rapid decontamination? So normally where you can rely and wait on backup, there's simply no margin here for waiting on this kind of help or aid. So the exterior operations, classic here. So what we're trying to illustrate here is just the venue operations will look like. So you got your typical officers managing protests, pedestrian flow, and traffic. Nothing crazy about that. Any sporting event, you're going to see that. But when you think about it with just a massive amount of people and it being a prime target, these aren't CBRN specific roles for these officers. They haven't been trained. So you have teams that are made up with personnel with little or no training whatsoever. And even though cities have done a great job of training over 10,000 responders, they're going to be stretched thin. They're going to be moved around into different roles and different scenarios. So that leaves a major readiness gap, right? So you're thinking about your interior operations. So now for those that were trained, are they going to be in their proper environment? So whether they're going to be out in the exterior functions or interior or in standby resource calls, this is going to leave really kind of, the unknown of have the right personnel to treat that. Now we jump into the interior operations of it. This is where it could be more secured, right? So you're doing your checks, you're doing your security checks. So these are confined spaces, but you have your aisles, your exits, your concessions, which create bottlenecks and blind spots. It also creates really kind of an issue where crowd control becomes your worst enemy if there is some sort of attack or there is an unknown package found and you have to de-escalate, you have to get people moved out. These aisles and these exits become great bottlenecks and you have another issue to deal with. Personnel's reduced inside too, so speed and coordination becomes super critical. And your gear and response kits have to be mobile and staged near the choke points. So if you're relying on an outside trailer to come in and kind of deploy it within inside that environment, that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of setup. So the risk of mass disruption drops. The threat shifts to isolated incidents or concealed items. So having something that's mobile, dismounted, or something that could be readily or quickly deployed is kind of the game changer in this event. So kind of now set up the scene, kind of let me know what kind of what we're hearing, the topics, and pass it over to Kyle, who kind of covered the technical aspect of the fast effect, and I'll be jumping back on shortly.
Yeah, thank you, George. George was mentioning, both interior and exterior to, essentially public venues or places of gathering, and having a product or a technology that can rapidly respond to those known and unknown incidences is really a valuable tool for responders, police, fire, hazmat, all the different agencies, both local, state, and federal level. George mentioned kind of the interior areas as well. It's not just the big outside gatherings, but some of those interior areas as well is where a lot of times the chemical vapors can actually be some of the most dangerous, because you might have people crowded in smaller areas. Vapors don't dissipate as quickly from a release. Chemical cleanup and decontamination can be tricky, and that's really where a product like Fast Act can help significantly those events. Fast Act was designed for the treatment of chemical threats. That's what it's designed to do. The technology is deployed in a variety of different systems, and those different systems really are designed and set up to be modular tools for different tactical developments. We have common bulk products where we can release and deploy powders on chemical liquid spills. We have personal equipment and decontamination that can be used for personal gear cleanup, sensitive equipment, individual kits, which are wonderful for patrol, riot teams, different agents, even VIP types of protection. But then the vapor threat reduction. That is really one of the biggest benefits that FAST Act can have in these types of situations, because those bad actors are wanting to potentially release something that can cause quick and immediate threats and dangers, and having a rapidly deployable, and you'll see some videos that we have here later, but rapidly deployable products that can be used to knock down airborne contaminants, different airborne chemicals, is a tremendous benefit to those that are trying to keep those areas safe and secure. And FAST Act has a lot of advantages over traditional decon. We are a dry powder decontamination simple, which really does make it a simple, safe, and effective product, and different application tools that really have been designed for quick deployment. It's able to neutralize both liquid and vapor hazards, and we're going to talk about some of the different chemicals that might be used in these incidents here in a few slides. But that ability to safely apply it and intuitively use it, and I think that's a very key thing, is yes, it's a complex product with tremendous science and a wonderful history of helping a lot of people, but it is not complicated. It is very easy to use operationally. Training is really quite minimal for all the different FAST Act products that do exist. And from an incident management perspective, dry powders are easier to clean up. They're easier to handle. The residue is a lot easier to dispose of in many instances. And you'll see when we talk about some of these different chemicals again here, a lot of times they're actually just solid waste residues as opposed to hazardous waste. So very thorough product in terms of what it can do, but also for these teams that are protecting these areas or responding to these incidents, it's very important that they are compact, easily stored, easily used, and easily deployed. So who is using FAST Act now in these types of scenarios? It really is all different branches of government, all the way up from federal to local deployment, and commercial entities. George, is there anybody that you might want to specifically point out?
Well, I think just kind of taking a look at some of the customer base and the agencies, one thing that we're seeing is the shift to dry decontamination, which is becoming important, because intra-agency, first on the scene, first to respond, whether it's police, it's the hazmat team, or it's the medics, they all have to have some sort of means to treat, whether it's life casualty or the scene itself. So one thing we're seeing is we started working primarily with the defense industry, geared over to center of government, but now the intra-agencies are working together. So we're hosting demonstrations that include the hazmat teams, police, first responders, and the medics, and they're wanting to be trained both on the benefits of dry decontamination and how to work together, when that first person comes to the scene and utilizing a tool like FAST Act. So this is kind of just a quick subset, some bullet points of it's being used by the most technical people in the world, but also folks that have little to no CBRN experience that can use a ready to deploy product in a civilian kind of environment.
Yeah, absolutely. From cleanup of the incident itself to really decontamination and resetting the scene and cleaning the for the responders, those that have showed up, getting their gear and their equipment ready for the next event is something that is what they're all really wanting to do. And how it's used is it really, the thing I really want to point out here is that it's very modular, and it is kind of a first on scene type of product. We have different decontamination kits that we have put together. Fast Act is a family of product, a system of products that can be used tailored to different types of scenes, different types of incidents. It's a great way to prevent, the spread and containment of a chemical, but also to prevent that cross-contamination, the ability to decon the gear that people are wearing or the infrastructure, what they're trying to protect. But the rapid deployment and the immediate ability to neutralize a wide variety of chemicals is a significant advantage for these types of incidences, which really are on the rise. And we have engineered this product over a number of years to respond to all sorts of different types of chemicals. The liquid and vapor threats are really the ones that can be dangerous in these, civil unrest or riot types of situations. There are the traditional chemical warfare agents, but the number of incidences on the rise really are, and George mentioned this earlier, is the readily available chemicals. The ammonias, chlorine, hydrogen chloride, sulfur dioxide, these are becoming much more prevalent. And when you look at some of the reports and statistics out there, when singular chemicals or where they're able to identify what chemical is used in these types of incidences, chlorine is actually one over the last 25 years that really becomes one that stands out and becoming much more common and prevalent in these types of situations. And I can absolutely tell you, as somebody who has been exposed to chlorine, it is absolutely just it's something you don't want to happen. It really knocks you out, even in low levels. And a product like Fast Act has been used against those types of chemicals for decades now to make them safer and to make the situation safer in both accidental and intentional types of releases. And the products of Fast Act have gone through substantial validation, not just the real world uses that have again happened over the last 20 years, but the validation through different registration bodies, certification bodies, and third-party testing that has occurred around the world, from its efficacy against chemical warfare agents or toxic industrial chemicals to procedures and protocols for specific types of decontamination, whether that's surface sensitive equipment or in some instances, in some places, even personal decontamination or skin decontamination. And that has occurred with the products being also proven to be very safe. Fast Act utilizes metal oxide technology. It's predominantly a magnesium oxide based material with titanium dioxide as a secondary component. These are very uniquely produced and manufactured metal oxides that we have through our patented and trade secret processes that enhance the decontamination ability of these metal oxides while retaining the important safety properties of those materials. And I think that's something me as my background being science, microbiology, and chemistry, I think that's one of the most important things is, we're trying to make the situation safer. We're trying to mitigate these risks. We don't want to be using products that can spread or make the situation actually worse. And that's really important to us. We're really wanting to mitigate those chemical risks. And what is important about this? Well, as riots and civil unrest rise, international conflict, chemical agents are being used much more frequently. And first responders, our law enforcement personnel, all the way down to local government agents, are essentially the front line against these types of threats. And they can protect themselves with certain aspects to try to keep themselves safe, but they're also needing to be able to to help the public, protect the public. And products like Fast Act really can do that. And as the individuals that are potentially the bad actors out there are doing this, they're becoming more clever with different ways to actually weaponize chemical releases. And there we had some training that was done where they were actually looking at drone deployment of chemicals. These bad actors potentially could be releasing these things, from a distance. So the deployment of Fast Act is a good countermeasure to the ways that these individuals are deploying these chemicals. Just kind of showing a little bit of video taken from a scenario here. So that's why preparedness is quite important. There are a lot of different chemicals being used, from toxic industrial chemicals. I mentioned the increase in chlorine. We have things like chlorocyprin that is being used around the world, which is it's a slightly oily colorless liquid with a really strong irritating odor. It's being utilized. There's a lot of different things that can be out there. Riot control agents, you've got things like CN or HCl, CS gas, perchlorates, chlorobenzenes, dioxins, all of these different choking agents, caustics are on the rise. And it is these aerosols, liquids, and gases that, when they're delivered in those types of mechanisms, law enforcement, the responders are having to deal with that. And something like Fast Act is a tremendous way to use that. So the way that the Fast Act products can be used in these real world incidences is through the decontamination of the whole surrounding area. But the riot gear, the vehicles, anything that may have been specifically targeted or attacked. But the most common deployment is really the rapid deployment and spraying of the Fast Act into the air or on the surfaces in these containment areas. This is the type of product that I hope you do not need to use, but it is absolutely best to have it ready and available when these types of incidences do occur. We've had, over the course of the last few years, protests have been increasing in the US and in Europe and in South America. Things like CS and CN are being utilized, kind of your traditional tear gases. And those are types of agents that can cause irritation. But it's really some of the other chemistries that are utilizing different types of functional groups that can be much more dangerous as opposed to nuisance. Things like acid attacks are actually, they made a lot of headlines in Europe and the UK over the last number of years. Fast Act is a tremendous product for those types of chemistries, the rapid neutralization of them. Those chemicals can cause severe burns. They can cause, the vapors from them can cause choking issues. And the ability for Fast Act to neutralize those types of things, especially the acids, where they can safely form, metal salts and waters is a tremendous way to help mitigate that, and also simplify cleanup. Chlorine gas in conflict, again, I've mentioned this a couple times, it is becoming much more prevalent around the world. FAST Act is tremendous against different types of chemistries that have chlorine in it. For example, CS gas actually has chlorine and nitrogen sites that FAST Act wants to attack. CN is the type of agent that we want to attack through oxidation and hydrolysis. There's chlorobenzene, but chlorine gas itself, it's been used in Syria. It's about a quarter of the incidents that have happened have had chlorine or chlorine related chemistry. They do cause a lot of panic, and they have absolutely long-term respiratory damage issues for people exposed to them. FAST Act, again, rapidly neutralizes chlorine gas. I've seen it done. Like I said, I've been exposed to it. It's not pleasant. But within our facility, we have testing facilities where we've actually released high concentrations of chlorine in it, rapidly deployed FAST Act under testing scenarios, and some of the testing agencies that have validated FAST Act have used it against that type of chemistry to effectively neutralize the chemical in the air. Here's a live FAST Act against chlorine. Here they're using chlorine that's coming out of a container and deploying one of the FAST Act pressurized cylinders. Again, a very intuitive product with the FAST Act pressurized cylinders. People are used to using fire extinguishers. Fire extinguishers are rapid to use, easy to use, and that is something that carries through all the different FAST Act products. It is not just limited to the intuitiveness to the cylinders, but our decontamination powder, our decon mitts, and our decon wipes. These are all things that are easy to use, and it really, when something is released, it could be anything. It could be an industrial chemical, it could be chlorine, it could be a riot type of agent. You can deploy FAST Act to mitigate the risks that are associated with those chemistries. We can help potentially reduce burns, respiratory injuries, and environmental contamination with rapid response by these dry powder response systems that can attack these vapor and liquid forms. Additionally, if it can prevent that secondary spread and secondary exposures, we're going to have a tremendous positive impact on that situation. And again, the number of chemicals that are out there being used are pretty substantial with what we're seeing. And I think that's an important thing to consider is you may not know what that chemical is that has been released. You might just see the effects of it. And having a product that has the ability to broadly be effective against a whole host of different types of chemicals, is it a fumigant? Is it a insecticide? Is it an acid? FAST Act can be deployed, and it can absolutely support your response team's missions in these public scenarios. And how can we support you? I'll let George talk a little bit about some of the things we do out in the field as we train new teams that are coming on to the FAST Act family.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So there's a lot of roles that we can play. First and foremost is just sharing the experiences, sharing you how we've equipped or worked with other teams to kind of give you that firsthand knowledge. I'm very happy to say in the months of August, September, we're going to be hosting and training 3 of the World Cup cities. So they're purchasing Fast Act. They're going to deploy it out. So with their purchase of Fast Act, we actually go out with some of our subject matter experts and kind of just let them know how to use it. So train them on it. So it's very important, buying a product and getting the buy-in from the team and understanding how to use it. So we have, just a really great team that kind of goes out and spends, half a day out with the teams and the agencies and intra-agencies and just gets them accustomed to using it. And also, in hybrid situations where they're using some of their other tools, we're not looking kind of this place that kind of supplement and add and fill in voids. So definitely happy to kind of have those conversations with you as you start to gear up. If you are a World Cup city, that's great. If you're not, and you're just looking to understand the role that dry decon plays, we're kind of the first on the scene speaking about it when it wasn't a very popular subject. So utilize and leverage our, 2 decades plus of experience in testing. So we're happy to speak to your agency. Another thing that's very important to us and from our leadership and ownership is a US based company and technology. So for those folks on this call today that are in the US, we're stocked up and ready to help your teams out for this World Cup and for these kind of different riots and different protests. So that's an important factor when you're ordering equipment that have kind of longer lead times. We're ready to kind of supply you now. It's made here in the US. We have our facilities in Topeka, Kansas, and our support centers in Florida. So definitely love to kind of leverage that. So there's a kind of couple means where you can contact us directly. And I think there's a slide that will give you that contact information. We'll also email everyone that's on this call some testing reports, but definitely a couple of things that I urge is scan that QR code. You're going to get the kind of that infrastructure guide and large events and managing it. Reach out to us to set up a kind of one-on-one presentation or kind of how we can best outfit your team, or just let us kind of bend your ear, or you could bend our ear on what your team is currently doing or your agency is doing or kind of your customers are looking for. But definitely want to kind of start it with the conversations, get some product out to you so you can kind of evaluate it, send you over our testing reports. We're definitely have a team that's ready in place to kind of serve you when you're on the domestic side. And for the international folks that are on this call, we have also our subject matter expert that kind of go out and visit the teams, and then we can do some virtual calls. Fast Act is currently deployed in 37 plus countries, present day in time and growing. We're going to be adding 10 plus, fingers crossed, by the end of the year. So it's a product that's not only been kind of deployed out, but widely used and accepted. So definitely appreciate all those folks that have joined from different time zones and kind of came on the call today. And we're going to open it up for questions. So I'll kind of leave you with some information here, how to reach our sales teams. Feel free to reach out, kind of schedule give them a call or send an email. And we'll also be reaching out to folks at there. So right now I'll open up for any questions, and you can ask through the question in the chat feature.
Hey guys, so we did receive a few questions. The first question was from Dr. Mark Forrest. He asked if Fast Act is effective on nitazines. I will share those with you.
Thank you, Leticia.
Yes.
Let me get an answer for that. I also see a question about any side effects or health risks. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that one first. Fast Act is from a, I kind of covered a little bit of the safety aspects of it. It is just actually a nuisance powder. So really the risk of an incident like this is from the chemical agent, not from the Fast Act product. Fast Act product, if you're dispensing powder into the air, it's a nuisance dust, but nothing like that. And the nitazene, it kind of depends upon the form, but when it comes to illicit drugs and opioids, we do actually have a Fast Act kit called the Fast Act Defend Kit. I'd highly suggest reaching out to us about that because we do have products and response systems that can handle illicit drugs and opioids. We
Thank
have
you,
another
Kyle.
question. Oh, absolutely, about neutralizing chlorine. We actually do have a paper that we can provide that talks about the chlorine gas neutralization, and it does give the gram to gram ratio, and it also normalizes it to specific volumes that it could be released in. So we do have that information, and we'd be happy to share that with you for the individual that asked that question.
And then Kyle, the last question we had here was, what is the shelf life of the product Fast Act?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, the shelf life of the products is 5 years. When we are essentially constantly making Fast Act, and we are shipping the product generally with between 5 and 6 years shelf life to our end users. So you'll get a full 5 years.
And then we got another one, Kyle. How does Fast Act perform in urban environments where chemical threats may be combined with other hazards, such as fire or structural damage?
Well, Fast Act can be used in all of those types of different situations in urban environments. Fast Act itself is not going to be impacted by fire. In terms of what it's attacking is the chemical vapor or the liquid chemical that is present. If you were utilizing a Fast Act cylinder against those chemicals and fire was present, it's still going to attack that chemistry or any of the other chemistries that might be coming off of the burning, the different byproducts of that combustion. Fast Act's not going to put out a fire per se. It does have a little bit of smothering effect, but you would want to definitely take care of the fire situation separately and potentially first. It's not going to have any issues with material compatibility between Fast Act and the structure. Again, it's metal oxide powders, which are a major component of the Earth's crust. So these are things we encounter every day. But what's unique about Fast Act is the way that we engineer these metal oxides to essentially unlock their full ability to neutralize and contain all of these different chemistries and make them much more efficient at doing so than traditionally mined or commodity versions of metal oxides. So, Fast Act has a lot of those unique benefits, but in a safe and safe system that is, not problematic for the environment or different surfaces or structures.
Kyle, we got another one. Is there anything specific Fast Act is not effective on? Is it effective in countering hydrofluoric acid?
Yes, it's actually very effective against hydrofluoric acid. The areas that Fast Act is going to be, or not the areas, but the types of chemistries, it's going to be your liquid and vapor chemistries. If it's a solid chemistry, Fast Act being a solid powder, dispensed powder, it's not going to be as effective in the containment or neutralization of another solid material. It really is geared towards the liquid and vapor types of chemistry. Now, that doesn't mean that utilizing Fast Act in a situation where a solid material has been dispersed is a bad thing. It's just the area where Fast Act is most effective is going to be with the liquid or vapor chemistries.
Great, thank you, Kyle. We got a new one. Is there any specific conditions like temperature or pressures to store Fast Act?
The different products do have different storage conditions, but they are very broad. Basically, if it's in a original packaging, just about any storage condition is going to be fine. Any type of warehouse, any sort of vehicle, it is going to be fine. I believe that can all be found on our website, but if it can't, we can supply that. But again, being metal oxide powder, the ranges at which it can be stored and utilized is really quite diverse. It really just comes down to making sure it's nothing too crazy. But really, anywhere that any materials are being stored, it will be fine.
Kyle, we got another question here. Can Fast Act be used inside vehicles, aircraft, or confined areas like metro systems?
Oh, absolutely, and it has been. We have done decontamination in those areas for a number of years. Confined areas is actually one of the best places to utilize Fast Act because the threat is from what is in the air, and you need a way to knock that down. And if you can't, if you don't have natural ventilation, you would want something like Fast Act to be able to mitigate and take that down, essentially neutralize and knock it down for easier cleanup and safety. So absolutely, yes, it can be used in those types of situations. What was the other part of that? Inside aircraft, we have done decontamination of different vehicles and places with sensitive equipment. And we actually do have a report on some sensitive equipment decontamination that I believe is available on our website and could also be shared as well.
We got another question, Kyle. Can Fast Act be used on broken or damaged skin, or is it strictly for intact skin?
The in parts of the world where Fast Act is cleared for skin use, the definition of a Class 1 medical device is on intact skin. So that is what it is designed, what it has been designed for.
All right, I don't think we have any other questions. I'll give another like 2 minutes or so for more questions, but I'll drop in the chat here our general email and our website. If you guys have any further questions or think about anything else or need more information from any of us, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to support. I think we got another question, Kyle. What about crime scenes? Does it affect forensics?
One of the nice things about Fast Act is that we have done just a lot of work and research on the different mechanisms of how Fast Act interacts with these different types of chemistries. So, can Fast Act neutralize, chemicals on a crime scene? Yes, it can. But because of those mechanisms being known, the collected residue by analyzing what it is and what the byproducts are, the forensic investigation would not be hindered by that.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. And then can you just repeat again your answer about the skin, intact skin, please?
Sure. In areas where Fast Act is cleared for skin use, the clearance and the certification of the class 1 is for intact skin.
thank you. We do have another question. Sorry, Kyle. It's all good stuff. So this is great. Does the use of FAST create any harmful byproducts or residues?
Well, it does create byproducts, essentially the neutralization of whatever the chemistry that is, that it was attacking. So that, I'll use, chlorine as an example. It's going to form magnesium chloride. So that is a byproduct of of that interaction of that mechanism, but it is rendering it safer, and it is immobilizing it on the FAST-Act surface. So that's essentially what you are wanting to achieve is, different byproducts of those harmful actor chemicals and immobilizing them on the FAST-Act product. So we are making the situation safer with the use of FAST-Act as opposed to making it more dangerous or leaving those original starting chemicals present.
Great. Thank you, Kyle, so much for all of your answers. This has been very helpful. I don't think you have any other questions, but I did drop our email there. If anybody has any other questions, just let us know, and Kyle or George or myself will be happy to support you. I will be sending out the recording of the webinar after we are done here. So between probably later today, you guys will receive that via email. And again, thank you so much for your support and for being here. So thanks again. Thank you, Kyle, and thank you, George, for all the help.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Our website has tremendous information, but never hesitate to reach out to acquire the products that you may need for your teams, or to ask questions about capabilities, and we can help customize really the modular types of systems that you may need for what you may face.